As Trump threatens to close border, experts warn of billions in economic damage. April 1, Washington. When the Trump administration abruptly shuttered the San Isidro border crossing for 5 hours on the Sunday after Thanksgiving, following a skirmish with a group of migrants, holiday traffic snarled for hours south of San Diego. Businesses on the U.S. side of the border lost about $5.3 million in sales, local officials said. Tens of thousands. President Trump now is threatening to exponentially increase the scale of that disruption, vowing to indefinitely close the U.S. border with Mexico to show his resolve and his peak as tens of thousands of Central American migrants continue to jam legal entry points in unguarded remote areas. Trump's chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, said Sunday that the president, who has threatened to close the border before, is not bluffing. But White House it is probably impossible to close the entire 2,000-mile-long border. But Trump could even a limited and temporary closure would be felt from California to Texas. A longer-term it would quickly face legal challenges and add to chronic staffing problems for already stretched U.S. immigration enforcement agencies. It also would require the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, a pro-business organization, warned Monday of severe. Even some of Trump's immigration allies worry about the economic impact of a border shutdown. If the White House could limit the economic impact, he said, by halting passenger, car, and pedestrian border crossings while keeping rail and truck ports open. That Trump, who shut part of the federal government for 35 days in December and January in a dispute with Congress over his demands for a border wall, may decide those risks are worth the potential political gain as he gears up for his re-election campaign. He plans to travel to California on Friday for fundraisers in Los Angeles and a visit to the border at Calexico, where he is expected to highlight the recent surge in migrants from Central America. The administration has amped up its rhetoric, vowing to crack down on what officials called a spike in asylum seekers from Central America that has overwhelmed U.S. immigration agencies. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen ordered the Customs and Border Protection Commissioner to reassign 750 officers from ports of entry to help Border Patrol agents operating primarily between ports of entry and to consider increasing that number. Nielsen told reporters Friday that closing ports of entry was also under consideration. Nielsen said pulling officers from busy crossing points would require closing some lanes that process cars and people. Squeezing ports of entry almost certainly would put more strain on the officers and Border Patrol agents who are dealing with the crisis, however. Administration If trucks carrying farm produce and car parts are barred from crossing the border, the economic impact would quickly spread. Nearly $13.7 million in agricultural products move through the port of entry at Nogales, Arizona, every day, for example, said Veronica Nye, an economist with the American Farm Bureau Federation in Washington. Because those products. Similarly, the car parts shipped across the border each day are integral to supply chains that span the globe. A slowdown could after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, the George W. Bush administration stepped up inspections at border ports that brought crossings to a standstill in some areas. Bush received a call from the president of General Motors, who said the auto giant would soon go bankrupt if the situation persisted, according to Alan Bersin, who served as a senior official in the Homeland Security Department in the Obama administration. Bersin said Trump has the executive authority to seal off the border, but his threats are ultimately. Last Tuesday, Nielsen held unannounced talks with Mexican counterparts in Miami, warning them of a slowdown at the border and urging them to do more to stop migrants traveling north. On Wednesday, she signed what she hailed as a historic pact with the Northern Triangle countries of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador to curb unauthorized migration, including joint police operations to combat trafficking. Even as Trump is seeking such cooperation, he said he would cut aid to the 3 Northern Triangle countries because the State Department has been instructed to cut a total of $450 million that Congress had authorized for the 3 countries over the last 2 years but has not yet spent. The administration is required to inform Congress and, in the event of objections, to negotiate the size of the cuts. But White House officials Times staff writers Jasmine Ulloa in Los Angeles and Tracy Wilkinson in Washington contributed to this report. See 2019 The Los Angeles Times. Visit the Los Angeles Times at www.lateams.com. Distributed by Tribune Content Agency, LLC.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.